When I arrived at the lonely cabin, the rugged man changed my life forever. I will never forget the sting of the cold air as I stepped inside, feeling the weight of silence blanket the room. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, their wooden planks creaking under the weight of memories. My heart pounded as I caught sight of him, a figure hunched over a flickering lantern. His back was broad, shoulders tense, almost protective. I shouldn't have been there. But the lure of the unknown pulled me in like a moth to flame. That I could smell smoke lingering in the air, mingling with the sweet scent of pine. A chill ran down my spine. What was this man hiding? His hands were rough, scars tracing stories I could only imagine. I felt like I was intruding in a world where I didn't belong, my trembling fingers brushing against the cabin's worn furniture, feeling the echoes of 1,000 untold tales. "Who are you?" I finally managed to whisper, my voice barely breaking the thick silence. That he turned slowly, his eyes piercing and dark, like stormy skies ready to unleash chaos. "Just a man living where the world can't find me," he replied, each word measured and laced with an undeniable weight. In that moment, my breath hitched. What had driven him to this desolate place? I saw shadows dance across his face, stirring a strange mix of fear and curiosity inside me. Outside, the wind howled like a lost soul, rattling the windows with its fierce grip. I was frozen, caught between fear and something else, a yearning to understand. I felt the walls closing in, the shadows growing longer and deeper, each corner filled with whispers of doubt. What had I stumbled into? What darkness lurked behind his rugged exterior? I wanted to flee, but something inside urged me to stay, to discover the truth that lay hidden beneath his stoic visage. As he stepped closer, I noticed the flicker of something profound in his eyes. Was it pain? Regret? It made my heart race in an erratic rhythm. My chest tightened. Why did I feel this strange connection? The silence between us grew heavy, intense. Each heartbeat echoed in the stillness. And then, just as I thought I understood him, he opened his mouth to reveal something that shattered my fragile composure. Sometimes, the things we bury can come back to haunt us. Just like that, an unsettling fear gripped me. What did he mean? I felt the hairs on my neck stand up, the chill of uncertainty curling around me. I needed answers. But the way he looked at me, it was as if he knew secrets meant for another world, secrets that could change everything. My heart raced, I was teetering on the edge of something monumental, an adventure, or impending doom. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The wind whipped through the trees outside, a wailing cacophony that seemed to mock my uncertain heart. The man's words echoed in my mind, lingering like a specter. Sometimes, the things we bury can come back to haunt us. What could possibly lie beneath the surface of his weathered skin and stoic demeanor? I felt an urgency to peel away his layers, to understand the ghosts that haunted him. Haunt you? I finally managed to ask, my voice shaky, each syllable feeling like a fragile thread in this strange, suffocating web. What do you mean? He stepped closer, the dim light from the lantern casting eerie shadows, deepening the grooves of his face. His gaze flickered briefly to the floor, a vulnerability I hadn't expected. "We think we can escape them," he murmured, almost to himself. "But they follow us, like shadows in the night." My breath quickened as I sensed the weight of his history pressing down on him, as though he was shouldering an unbearable burden. Before I could ask more, a sudden knock pierced the atmosphere. The sound echoed through the cabin like a gunshot, jolting me from my thoughts. The man stiffened, his eyes narrowing. "Stay here," he commanded, a fierceness creeping into his voice. I nodded, mind racing with concern as he moved toward the door, an implacable wall of calm in a storm brewing around us. With a gradual creak, he opened the door, revealing snowflakes swirling wildly in the night. Standing in the doorway was a young woman, her face flushed from the cold, a thin blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She appeared breathless, panic etched in her features. "Please, I need help," she gasped, her voice trembling as much from the biting wind as from fear. The man's demeanor shifted instantly, softening, his walls receding like an incoming tide. "What happened?" His voice dropped an octave, commanding and gentle all at once. I watched as he shifted his focus entirely to her, a spark of warmth igniting in the cold room. "It's my brother," she cried, her eyes wide with desperation. "He's hurt, we were out in the woods, and I don't know what to do." In that moment, I felt the gravity of the cabin shift, no longer just a realm of secrets and shadows, but a place renewing itself with purpose, a sanctuary for broken souls. "Bring her in," I whispered to myself, pushing past my apprehension. I stepped toward the door and reached for her arm, pulling her gently into the warmth. I could feel her trembling against me, a shiver seeping into my own skin. "Come inside," I urged, wrapping my arm around her shoulders in a feeble attempt to soothe her. As I ushered her into the cabin, the man's gaze shifted to me, searching for understanding, an unspoken bond forming as we both realized the weight of the situation. Though fear resided in my heart, I also felt something awakening, an inexplicable bond that tethered us together in this moment. The fragility of our lives intertwined like roots beneath the surface, hidden from sight but fiercely connected. The young woman stumbled over her words as she recounted the details. "He was trying to clear a fallen tree, and I think it hit him," she cried, teardrops mingling with fresh snowflakes that clung to her lashes. "He was alone for too long. He could be." Her voice broke, and panic clawed at the edges of her composure. "Show me," the man said, urgency shifting the air. Without a moment's hesitation, he grabbed a worn hunting coat from the back of a rickety chair and turned to me. "We need to move now." As he pushed past me, a quiet determination radiated from him, igniting a flicker of hope within my own troubled heart. I followed closely, my pulse racing as I tried to make sense of everything unfolding before me. The weight of the cabin faded into the background, replaced by the pulse of the wilderness outside, the sound of our footsteps crunching through the fresh powder echoing in rhythm, dancing between fear and urgency. But as we stepped out into the icy night, I couldn't shake the feeling of something ominous lurking just beyond sight. Something dark intertwined with this newfound urgency, a secret just waiting to surface, one that could shake everything we had begun to build in this harrowing encounter. Halfway into the woods, the woman suddenly froze. "No. This way." She lunged ahead, panic overtaking her senses. I exchanged a worried glance with the man, both of us recognizing the urgency in her voice. And then I felt the momentary chill that numbed my spine as a figure appeared in the distance, shrouded in darkness. It hovered at the edge of the trees, backlit by the silver glow of the moon, a menacing silhouette that sent my heartbeat racing. "Stay behind me," the man commanded, the edge of his voice sharp, alert. As the terror seeped into my bones, I knew then that the shadows of the past had not given up so easily. They had arrived, and they were hungry for their reckoning. Every sense went on high alert as the figure loomed in the distance, its presence an unwelcome specter in our desperate search for the woman's brother. The man positioned himself firmly between the shadow and me, his back a sturdy wall. I could see the tension radiate from him in waves, his jaw clenched, eyes sharp and alert like those of a predator. I couldn't discern what he saw, only that it felt as if we stood at the precipice of something beyond dread. "Who goes there?" His voice rang out, strong yet laced with an undercurrent of caution. The figure remained still for a heartbeat longer before stepping into the moonlight. Relief coursed through me when I recognized the familiar face. It was a local hunter, a man named Evan, whose reputation hung over the town like a storm cloud but somehow felt momentarily reassuring. "Didn't he expect to see you out here?" Evan called out, his voice dripping with a mix of incredulity and wariness. "What is going on?" "There's been an accident," the man replied briskly, eyes darting between Evan and the depths of the woods. A brother's been hurt. We need to find him. Evan's expression shifted from disbelief to a stern resolve. Lead the way. I've got a flashlight in my pack that'll help. As he made his way behind us, I felt the tension evolve into an uneasy alliance. The safety of numbers could be our greatest asset, yet, as we forged ahead, shadows still danced ominously along the path. The younger woman, still reeling from her earlier panic, managed to find her footing again. Please, hurry. He said he heard something in the dark and then he collapsed. I was too far away. Her voice trembled, each word dripping with guilt, as if she could somehow rewrite the night's events with enough urgency. Just keep moving, the man urged, his tone a mixture of encouragement and need. I could feel the pulse of desperation echo through the woods, each crack of a branch beneath our feet a reminder that time was slipping away. But in the chaos, as our breaths mingled with the bitter air, a more profound silence settled over us. I realized I was grappling not just with the fear of the unknown, but with the burgeoning awareness of another layer to the man beside me, the weight of his past colliding with this precarious present. I had felt it in the way he softened for the young woman, the flickers of compassion that emerged amidst the bristling facade. What pain had he endured that led him to this moment, this wilderness? His breath was steady but shallow, tension still wound tightly in his frame. Ever seen anything like what you just did? I asked as we forged on, hoping to bridge the silence between us. Not many, he replied, his gaze flickering back toward the shadowy expanse of trees. But I've heard stories. What stories? The question slipped out before I could stop myself, almost instinctual, and I caught a glimpse of something unreadable in his eyes, a glimmer that suggested both sorrow and unwanted intimacy. People can get lost out here, sometimes literally, sometimes within themselves. His words sliced through the night, heavy with unseen weight, but the truth behind them remained cloaked in mystery. And with that statement, I feared he was not merely speaking of lost souls in the woods. Let us not lose anyone else tonight, Evan chimed in, his voice drawing our focus back to the immediate concern. He turned, revealing a glimmer of artificial light, his flashlight beaming through the cold dark. This way. We pressed on, hearts pounding like war drums, nature enveloping us with an unsettling mixture of beauty and terror. The trees stood tall, seemingly sentinels bearing witness to our plight, as we drew closer to the site of the accident. The vulnerability of our collective desperation stroked at the edges of my mind, and an urgent question clawed at my throat. With the shadows lurking behind us and the woods seemingly alive with whispers, I pondered, was this man a protector or merely a reflection of the chaos that we were meant to face? And then we heard it, the unmistakable sound of a strained moan. Cutting through the silence, a sound that shattered the night, twisting despair and hope into a single knot of raw urgency. Keep moving. The man shouted, charging forward without hesitation. I followed closely, the adrenaline pushing me to keep pace. As our flashlight's beam danced over the snow, cocked branches, and scrub brush, I clung to the flickers of faith. We would find him. We had to, but just as hope flashed bright, the darkness shifted. A shrill scream pierced the night, echoing from the underbrush, its sharpness resonated with something deeper than mere terror. I froze, dread pooling in my stomach. The man halted as well, and in that moment, my heart twisted with a chilling realization, a feeling that something far worse than a mere accident lingered in these woods. Did you hear that? Evan whispered hoarsely, a quiver of fear eroding his bravado. Yes, the man said, but his voice was distant, lost in the depth of the sound. That we exchanged glances filled with unspoken terror as the shriek faded into an eerie stillness, leaving only the oppressive weight of the darkness around us. I felt a fresh tidal wave of anxiety crash over me, carrying with it the weight of secrets that remained unspoken. But right then, amidst our primal fear, I turned and locked eyes with the man, the rugged figure who had, time and again, deflected my questions and unveiled his sorrows only in fragments. It was in those moments of brazen understanding that I sensed it. The truth was close, hovering just at the edge, one step forward and it could all unravel. As the cold seeped into my bones and the golden hope of the waning moon lit our path, I knew we would have to confront not just the dangers of this wilderness but the implications of our own hidden pasts that traipsed in the shadows along with us. The future loomed uncertain, thick with secrets yet to unfold, and we were just getting started. The air thickened as we took cautious steps toward the source of the scream, each heartbeat echoing in my ears like an unrelenting drum. The oppressive silence behind us felt like a living thing, ready to pounce. I dared not dwell on what was behind, nor on what could lie ahead. All that mattered was finding the woman's brother and perhaps unraveling the tapestry of confrontations that wove us together in this desperate hour. What was that? She whimpered, clinging to the man as if he were a lifeline. The echoes of distress lingered, twisting between the trees, leaving us to grapple with imminent dread. "Stay close," he instructed, his voice sharpening into a command that cut through the tension. My gaze darted around, but the flashlight revealed only more shadows, creating a phantom gallery of twisting branches and gnarled roots. "Is it him?" she asked, struggling against her fear. The plaintive quality of her voice tugged at my heart. What held her captive, grief or guilt? I could not fathom how far this journey had stretched her thin, and the weight of it gnawed at me. "I think so, but we need to go quietly," Evan whispered, and in the ensuing silence, the forest seemed to hold its breath. We edged closer to a clearing, icy tendrils of fear wrapping tightly around me with each step. But before we could enter the clearing, the rustle of underbrush halted us. My breath hitched as two large eyes reflected the beam of the flashlight. A deer. It jumped in terror, bounding deeper into the woodlands, but at that brief moment, the tension receded slightly. Here was one small piece of nature's resilience amidst our chaos. Life thrived even in shadows. Then, just as swiftly, we came to a stop at the edge of a clearing where the soft white light of the moon illuminated the figure of a man on the ground, clutching his side, stained with crimson. It wasn't he, the brother we had feared to find. It was a stranger. What happened? The young woman's voice quaked, a note of disbelief lacing her question, as if her mind couldn't reconcile the horror with the warmth still trapped within. "Stay back," the man beside me shouted, abruptly taking a step forward, shielding her from view. The stranger looked up, dark hair plastered to his forehead, eyes glazed with pain. "I need help," he rasped, each syllable an agonizing effort. The rumbles of agony radiating from him punctuated the hollow silence around us. The harsh light fell upon his hand, where a jagged piece of wood lay embedded. It was evident he had stumbled into something grave, yet there was an almost unnatural calm in his voice that rivaled the chaos consuming us. "Please, my brother, he went that way, hunting errant game," he managed, his voice betraying a flicker of desperation. But his breath hitched, and he struggled to articulate the rest. "There's something out here." The rugged man's voice held authority, brimming with a mix of fear and bravado. Something told me he knew more than he let on. "We can't linger." "But he needs help," I interjected, my eyes darting nervously between them. The weight of anguish pooled in my chest as the rawness of his pain struck me like a blow. "I can help him, we need to," I began. "No." The man stepped forward, eyes blazing. "We have to find the brother." "The woods, the woods." The stranger cut him off. "They're not what you think. You're not alone out here." A shudder crept down my spine, and I sensed a darker truth hung in the air like tendrils of fog, fueled by a primal instinct. The woman stepped past the man I had formed a fragile bond with, her worry overwhelming any caution. I moved to follow, torn between the two, the price of compassion and the dangers lurking unseen. "Wait!" I shouted, just as she knelt beside the injured man. A cold gust of wind swept through the clearing, chilling us to the bone as I kneeled down to inspect the wound, but my heart fluttered with suspicion. There was a nagging feeling deep inside that perhaps this was a distraction from something more sinister, a pawn in a game where rules were obscured. As I worked cautiously to extract the splintered wood, another piercing sound shattered the fragile moment, a growl resonating from the underbrush, guttural and near. My heart raced, and the world around us cracked with a sound like splintering wood. "Get back!" The rugged man shouted, yet before we could react, something lunged from the shadows, a creature, not of flesh but of the night's darkest manifestations, the wilderness, once a sanctuary, now turned post-apocalyptic, unfurling the layers of our reality. My heart hammered against my ribcage, a voiceless scream caught in my throat. In that heart-stopping moment, truths and tensions raced forward together, unseen pasts melding with the present confusion and dread. The finality of the encounter loomed. This night this ritual of fear was not yet complete. I could see it now in the eyes of the man, in the urgency that flooded his features, the way the woods seemed to pulse with a different heartbeat. We were wrapped in a web of fern and mystery, caught upon the precipice of discovery, teetering on the edge of our own undoing. And just as I felt the weight of a decision pressing on my consciousness, like the impending murmur of an approaching storm, a distant cry echoed behind us, another scream, different, haunted, resounding through the eerie stillness of the night, clutching at the very foundations of our resolve. The wind howled through the trees like a melancholic ghost, a mournful chorus that echoed our despair. Each rustle of leaves carried with it the weight of unspoken fears and the unresolved questions that loomed heavy in the air. "Help me!" the stranger gasped, his hand trembling from pain, but I felt the urgency of his plea dissipate with the weight of the moment. The woods groaned, almost alive, pulsating with every small sound like a predatory beast poised to strike. That I momentarily hesitated, fingers hovering over the lodged wooden shard. Behind me, anxiety flooded through the man. Evan, that was his name, from the fleeting exchanges spoken in shared breaths. His body tensed beside me, and I could sense the battle between his instincts. He saw the injured man as a potential threat to our fragile safety, while I saw him as someone else's life hanging by a thread. Before I could decide, a shadow darted between the trees. My heartbeat quickened, and instinct clawed at my throat as I turned my gaze toward the darkening woods. "What was that?" I breathed, barely above a whisper. "It's not safe." Evan's voice was strained, but there was an underlying note of desperation, as if he feared not just for his safety but for our connection, threatening to unravel entirely under the weight of unseen dangers. "I need help," the man implored again, and in that moment, I was struck by a vision, a fleeting glimpse of a life beyond the suffocating fear. I saw the promise of laughter around a dinner table, a warm embrace from a mother, a brother's playful teasing. The possibility of hope clung to me like a ray of light through a dark cloud. "Just hold on," I murmured, steeling myself as I dared to reach for the jagged wood. The moment I touched it, I felt the reverberation of his agony coursing through my fingertips. Just then, the ground beneath us groaned, drawing my gaze back into the trees as the growl returned, a frenzied warning, a sign that our time here was limited. "Please, we have to go," Evan urged, more frantic now, grabbing my arm as he took a step back. "We might not be alone. What if that's the brother?" I countered, fingers brushing against the warm blood soaking into my palms. "He needs us." The stranger's eyes flickered, reflecting both pain and an urgency that pulled at my core. "If you help me, I can help you find him," he gasped, his voice a rasping whisper that clawed at the edges of reason. Was he lying? Was this a lure into deeper darkness? And then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, a sudden rustling broke through the tension as a figure emerged from the trees, stumbling toward us wild-eyed and breathless. It was someone hunting through the night, and I realized with an icy chill that they could be either salvation or the harbingers of doom. "Get back. It's not safe," she hollered, her features unrecognizable in the sparse shadows that encompassed our clearing. I caught a glimpse of torn clothing and a bloodied arm, my heart sinking further. "Who are you?" Evan demanded, just as we instinctively shifted to form a barricade around the stranger. The woman's hair was wild, strands stuck to her forehead, a primal fury igniting danger in her eyes. "I was hunting," she spat out between gasps, panic lacing her voice. "He's right. They're out there. I saw them." My pulse throbbed in my ears as desperation clawed through me. I felt as if I were teetering on the precipice of a chasm. "We need to get him help," I cried, trying to keep my faith in humanity intact as the words spilled from my lips. "Help isn't what we need," she yelled, turning to the woods, as if they held answers they didn't want to reveal. "We need to leave now." She glanced toward the stranger, her expression shifting into something more profound, perhaps even pitiable. "He can't help you." I saw what? I cut in, panic's icy fingers trailing down my spine. "We're not leaving him. Please." The stranger's voice was growing weaker, his plea a frantic gasp. "My brother, the creature, it took him." "Stop it!" Evan shouted, a mix of anguish and fear coiling in his guts. "We don't know what's out there. He could be lying." Yet as I locked eyes with the stranger, I saw something beyond fear. I saw survival etched in his very being, a bond formed in moments of pain and vulnerability. "Then let us find him together. Please," I urged, finally pulling the shard of wood free in one swift motion, eliciting a guttural cry from the man beside me. A flash of darkness darted in the corner of my eye, a hulking form emerged from behind the trees, primal and fierce. Everything else faded. The woman's words, Evan's shouts as terror cloaked the clearing, the night consumed my screams, the shadows swallowed our resolve, and in that harrowing instant, we all leaned into the tumultuous unknown, with the echo of the distant scream still ringing in our ears, a reminder we were not alone, not just in our fears but with whatever was lurking among those gnarled roots. "Run!" was the last thing I heard, a command caught in the throat of the man alongside me, but as shadows twisted to form terror, I realized we may not have anywhere to run at all. The darkness pressed in around us, thickening like a suffocating blanket, mingling with the sour scent of fear that hung heavy in the air. My heart raced, each beat echoing the urgency of our situation. We were adrift in a night that felt alive, teeming with unseen horrors. As the hulking shadow advanced, the world seemed to slow, and I locked eyes with Evan. His expression mirrored my own, a tangle of dread and resolve. "Stay close," he hissed, the words tumbling out almost instinctively as he edged back toward the trees. The wounded man groaned, dragging his hands across the ground, his breaths ragged and laced with panic. "I need to find my brother," he urged, desperation spilling from his lips like blood from his wound. "You can't leave me." Another guttural growl reverberated through the forest, igniting an instinct buried deep within me, a primal urge to flee, to survive at any cost. But just as I began to sway toward flight, a flicker of inspiration ignited my resolve. If we stood together, we might have a chance. "We can help you," I shouted, trying to harness the trembling hope that flickered within me. "But we have to work together." But more sounds lurked beyond the trees, a chorus of whispers entwined with the rustling of leaves that seemed to scold us for our hesitation. The unknown was prowling, demanding to be acknowledged, and I could practically feel the weight of unseen eyes watching, waiting for our mistakes. Evan stepped forward, trembling but determined. "Let us, and we'll help you," he said, his voice steadier than I felt. "Just tell us how to find your brother." The stranger's eyes gleamed in the dim light, incandescent with pain but lit with hope. "There's a cabin," he gasped, "just beyond the clearing. That's where they took him. Please, we have to hurry." "Then let us go," I urged, trying to keep my own resolve intact amidst the gnawing fears that tugged at my heart. The woman's frantic expression didn't escape me. She was poised on the edge of a precipice between disbelief and a desperate need to believe. The clarity of choice weighed on us all. "Are you insane?" she spat, as though my appeal had cut too sharply through her protective veil. "You think we can just walk into their lair? They'll devour us whole. There's no other choice," I countered. "If we leave him now, we'll lose more than a life, we'll lose that part of ourselves that still dares to hope." The conviction in my voice surprised even me, but with that realization came a small light, flickering against the engulfing darkness, a reminder that we were more than the sum of our fears. The stranger gritted his teeth against the pain and looked between us. "The cabin," he pressed again, urging us forward with the weight of unyielding desperation. Evan grasped my arm, the warmth of his touch anchoring me against my spiraling thoughts. "How can we trust him?" he whispered, trying to keep hope contained even as uncertainty loomed like a heavy fog. "He deserves a chance," I said fiercely as I glanced back at the stranger, whose face bore the marks of a life frayed at the edges. "We all do." With a slow nod, Evan exhaled a breath he'd been holding. The sound broke through the impending chaos, and our thoughts merged into an unspoken agreement. We were in this fight together, for better or worse. "Fine," the woman relented, her voice hoarse yet laced with an unexpected kindness, a glint of bravery reflecting in her wild eyes. "Let us reach that cabin before they reach us." As we began to weave through the trees, I felt the underlying tension shift ever so slightly. There was a silent understanding between us now, a bond formed by uncertainty and the desire to believe in the inherent goodness still flickering within our souls. But that bond was a fragile thing, and I could feel the weight of the woods urging us to give in to our fears. Pushing deeper into the maze of tree trunks, I held the stranger's gaze, willing the strength of our shared desperation to drown out the encroaching dread. We stepped lightly, hearts pounding, each clash of movement threatened to draw their attention. Then came a sound that rolled through the forest, a primal scream that echoed like thunder, reverberating in my bones and freezing my feet in place. "What was that?" Evan hissed, eyes wide with terror. "It might be his brother," I said, unwilling to allow fear to blind me. "We have to keep moving." But the woods shifted, a low rustle gathering strength behind us. A second scream pierced the stagnant air, filled with raw agony, spiraling through me like a pulse of ice. The stranger's face drained of color, and his anguish felt palpable, tightening around my throat like a noose. "Go!" he shouted, forcing himself to move despite the pain gripping him fiercely. "You have to go now. It's too late for me." "No!" I cried, astounded by his sacrifice, tears brimming in my eyes. But decision fell heavy upon us like a hammer crash, reverberating through the very roots beneath our feet. "Go!" he screamed once more, shoving me ahead, his strength flickering like a flame caught in the wind. Evan yanked me onward, adrenaline coursing through our veins as we pushed deeper into the shadows that felt more alive than ever. I threw a glance behind me, catching the stranger's gaze for the last time, his face a mask of tragedy, burdened with the weight of what he was allowing us to escape. The cabin loomed ahead, barely visible under the dark shroud of night. But just as we neared the clearing, I caught a glimpse of movement, a figure stepping out from the shadows, glistening with an otherworldly aura, as if the forest itself had exhaled it. "Run!" Evan shouted again, and in that harrowing moment, the last strains of hope frayed, unraveling predestined paths. The figure's eyes locked onto mine, thick with promise and dread as uncertainty spiraled in my chest, greater than all the fears that had come before. The revelation lingered in the air like a sword unsheathed, a silent proclamation echoing between worlds. We were trapped, encircled by our worst nightmares, and just like that, I knew our choices had sealed our fate. Whatever lay behind that cabin door would change our lives forever if we reached it in time. The cabin loomed ahead, its silhouette etched against the night like a sentinel of secrets. Each step felt like a heartbeat in the silence that surrounded us, the air thick with the remnants of screams and a rising tide of dread. My mind raced with conflicting thoughts, questions spiraled like leaves caught in a restless wind, and every inch toward the dilapidated structure heaved the weight of uncertainty upon my shoulders. Evan's grip tightened on my arm as we crossed into the clearing, the glow from a flickering lantern wavering beneath rotting wood, casting eerie shadows that danced like specters. The place seemed alive, vibrating with foreboding energy and sad stories just waiting to be unearthed. I cast a fleeting glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see the stranger emerge from the trees, faces grim and weary, yet defiant in the face of encroaching danger. "We need to be quick," I whispered, the urgency of my words barely masking the tremor in my voice. Evan nodded, but the tension in his shoulders told me he was weighing the same fears, the possibility that leaving the stranger behind might cost us more than we could envision. Yet deep within the sorrow of what we might be lost, a faint flicker of purpose burned, driving us forward. Bracing myself, I pushed the cabin door open. It creaked ominously, and for a moment, I felt as though it was a threshold twisted between reality and the infinite shadows that blanketed the forest. I stepped inside, the scent of dampness mingling with underlying hints of something metallic, a terror that hung in the air like a coiled spring, ready to snap. The interior was sparse, only a table, a few ancient chairs, and an overarching sense of history entangled in the wooden beams overhead. There were signs of life scattered about his belongings. All told a story, spilled remnants of both joy and despair. Torn photographs clung to the wall, faces of family bespeak of laughter under serene sunlit days, now contrasted by the starkness of this broken space. My heart twisted painfully at the sight. "Look!" Evan pointed, his voice barely a whisper outside the pounding in my ears. My gaze followed where he indicated, landing on a staircase that spiraled upward into darkness. The minutes stretched as I considered our next move, the air inside feeling heavier than outside, saturated with echoes of lost tales. "Should we check upstairs?" I asked, my own hesitation palpable. The possibility of finding the stranger's brother also filled me with trepidation. What if something lay waiting up there, a creature of desperation or despair? Before we could make a decision, a noise rippled through the room, a soft thud that drew our attention to the other side of the cabin. Our hearts raced in synchrony as we exchanged anxious glances. Fear crept into our thoughts again, clutching my throat with icy fingers. Taking a deep breath to quell the terror threatening to swallow me whole, I led the way toward the source of the sound. As I neared the wall, a voice trembled through the wood, gravelly yet achingly familiar, reverberating as if calling from the depths of a long-lost dream. "Help me!" It was faint but unmistakable. The desperation within those two simple words ignited a flicker of hope in my chest. "That's him!" I gasped, my fingers brushing over the wall as I searched for a door, a hidden entrance that might lead below. Evan pressed close, his breath shallow. "How do we get in?" "Wait." I focused on the sound, honing in like a compass drawn by the resonance of a familiar voice. "He is somewhere below. There has to be a way down." Abandoning my fear, I began searching the base of the wall, running my palms along the wood grain until I felt the slight give beneath my touch. "There!" Evan called, his excitement wrapping around me like a warm blanket in this chilling moment. I spotted it, a loose panel hidden beneath layers of grime. Together, we pried it open, unleashing a gust of musty air that tasted like decay and desperation. With little ceremony, I descended the creaking steps into darkness, the lantern's low glow. Clinging weakly to the walls as if fearful of what resided beyond. I rounded the corner into what was presumably once a cellar, now dimly lit and filled with unshapely shadows that flicked precariously around the edges, and there, in the far corner, bound to a chair, I saw him, his brother, his form stirring slightly. Even from a distance, the fear etched into his features signaled panic. My heart swelled with an impulse to rush forward, to untie him and bring him back into safety. But just as I moved, the blood-curdling howl reverberated through the cabin again, shaking me from my resolve. "It's coming!" Evan yelled from behind me, his voice slicing through layers of emerging dread that I turned sharply, the air thickening with an unsettling presence. My breath quickened, raw terror coursed through my veins as a silhouette moved toward us, creeping from the shadows like a phantom swathed in anguish and rage. The cabin door slammed shut with a resounding thud, sealing our fate with a finality that echoed off the walls. Panic gripped me as I faced the encroaching dark, my heart screaming for escape. "Help me!" the brother cried, and in his voice, I heard the tremor of something darker, something yet to be uncovered. Suddenly, a blinding force of light burst forth from the very heart of the shadows, illuminating the chaos for one fraught moment. I glimpsed the truth, a face that was not merely a monster but an embodiment of despair, eyes forged from the pain of abandonment. And in that ephemeral flash, the knowledge sank deep into my bones. This was no mere struggle for survival, it was a collision of histories, a reckoning of truth, and I existed on the precipice. "Choose, save him, or save yourselves." The figure intoned, its voice a chilling echo that curled around my mind like smoke, and as the shadows surged forth, I understood that the choice was never mine to make. In those haunted moments a promise made, a fate entwined, I stood paralyzed, deliberating the very meaning of loyalty and sacrifice. Whatever it was that awaited us beyond this darkness was about to change everything, unraveling our lives forevermore. The shadows shifted as the weight of the figure's words sunk into me, slithering through the cracks of my resolve. I was frozen in place, straddling the line between two worlds, the one of safety where personal survival meant everything, and the one in which heroism demanded a brutal cost. My heart pounded in syncopation with Evan's questioning eyes, each nearby whisper a reminder of the choice looming before us. "Please. You have to help me." The captive cried out again, voice cracking like glass. The urgency was there, raw and pleading, yet I couldn't shake the haunting presence behind me, the embodiment of sorrow and rage inching ever closer. It was as if the air around us had congealed into a thick fog, laden with unspoken dread, weighing down my limbs and my spirit. "Evan, we can't leave him. He needs us." My voice broke as I shouted back at the looming shadow, vitality urging me forward like an unrelenting current, but fear gripped Evan, palpable and fiery. "What if it's a trap?" he countered, his brow furrowed with indecision. "What if we save him, and he leads us straight into the monster's arms? We can't gamble our lives away." The temptation of retreat whispered sweetly in my ear, a siren song that beckoned me to abandon this moment of uncertainty, but the brother, bound and broken, was all I saw. My heart ached painfully, the truth of something deep inside me stirring against the chains of self-preservation. "Help me," the defeated plea echoed through the dusty chamber like a ghost demanding justice, and I felt tears prick my eyes. I had to try. I had to believe that our fragmented hearts could piece together something worth fighting for. Taking a shaky breath, I summoned all the courage I could muster. I refused to let fear dictate my choices. If I abandon him now, what will that make of us? What will we become? I moved toward the captive, ignoring the chilling proximity of the entity behind me, my hands trembling as I moved to untie the rope binding his wrists. But the shadow lunged forward, a growl reverberating deep within its core, and for an instant, my resolve faltered, dreading the repercussions of my reckless bravery. "Stay back!" Evan shouted, his voice strained, racing like wildfire through my panic. Yet in that moment of chaos, something unanticipated happened. Evan surged forward, defiance waking anew within him as he squared his shoulders against the dark. "We can do this together," he cried, distractions weaving around us like storm clouds. With each twisting knot I pulled apart, I could feel the glimmer of hope radiating between us, nurtured by our strength in unity and the depths of our memories, our shared fears and dreams. I focused on the brother's anguish, channeling the heat of empathy into courage, fear melting into sheer will. As the final knot slipped loose, the captive sagged in relief, his face a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you," he breathed, freedom, a soft sigh escaping his lips. "Now get out," I urged, stepping back as the light from the lantern flickered ominously. But before he could stand, the shadow surged between us, a tidal wave falling upon our small acts of defiance. "You wanted to save him?" it hissed, retrenching its stance, eyes ablaze with a flicker of madness. "Then tell me, what price are you willing to pay?" The question rang out, echoing through the depths of my soul, reverberating with an alarming urgency. In that suspended moment of agonizing uncertainty, I understood it was not simply our lives at stake. "Those you save, they belong to you now. And to keep your darkness at bay, a heart must be sacrificed," it said, voice like gravel scraping against stone. In that utterance, clarity struck with the force of a tsunami. The weight of my heart matched the gravity of our burden, and I felt Evan freeze beside me, a shiver of understanding coursing through him as well. The brother's presence somehow made both of our choices, the intersection of fates transcending reason, into something more profound, more terrifying, than I could comprehend. "Wait," I began, instinctively wrapping my arms around Evan, grounding myself against the fraying edges of reality. I was afraid, yes, but also fiercely determined. "What do you mean? We didn't ask for this." The shadow's laughter echoed off the stone walls like an impending storm. And yet, here you stand, hearts bound by a past you can neither escape nor embrace. The reckoning is coming. You'll have to choose, ultimately, who to save and who to lose. That chilling ultimatum twisted in my gut, and as the weight of my imminent decision pressed down on us like a suffocating blanket, I felt the world around me begin to crumble. Shadows expanded, encroaching all at once, every fiber of my being screaming for escape, yet trapped at this crossroads of sacrifice. The brother, his fragile form a reminder of everything I feared losing, turned to me, desperation shifting to resolve. You have to save each other, he urged, though tears stained his cheeks, and the desperation in his voice was laden with the unspoken. But as I looked into his eyes, a shocking realization pierced through the suffocating darkness. He had not only wanted saving, he desired to be the one to carry the weight alone, the echo of pain unearthing the hidden depths of sacrifice. The flickering lantern cast dizzying shadows as everything blazed forth: trust, hope, fear. But nestled within our tangled hearts was the daunting fact that our choices had morphed into something irrevocable. The shadows swirled tighter, slicing through my courage, kindling doubts I once believed extinguished. In that breathless space, I sensed a latent understanding passing between us, three travelers through despair, each heartbeat a fragile promise weighing heavy on my conscience. A choice had to be made, but as the encroaching darkness loomed, I found myself trapped in a web of uncertainty, hanging delicately between saving a life and forsaking hope. And then it came crashing down upon me, the final sentence of fate, a promise breached. Remember, the figure murmured as I took a step back, shaking against the weight of realization. You are bound by blood and betrayal, and in the heart of this world, the price can be greater than the sum of its sacrifices. The ground trembled beneath me, and as the shadows congealed, the cabin doors shuddered against a rising tempest. Just as I opened my mouth to voice a final plea, the dawn broke in an explosion of rage and light, engulfing everything before me. The last thing I heard, before the unknown swallowed us whole, was the brother's anguished scream, one that shattered the very core of a promise, echoing through the twilight reality. And suddenly, everything went dark. When I arrived at the lonely cabin, the rugged man changed my life forever. The stifling darkness enveloped me as my surroundings shifted and blurred, becoming indistinguishable from the swirling void in my mind. I floated in that vast stillness, cradled by silence, heartbeats echoing like distant drums. Then came a flicker, a small spark igniting the black. Gradually, the weight of reality pressed against me, squeezing out the darkness. I opened my eyes, blinking against the brightness. The cabin stood intact, its wooden beams sturdy yet somehow cloaked in a tense anticipation. I lay sprawled on the floor, shivering in the remnants of fading adrenaline. "Evan?" I called, my voice sounding foreign in the hushed stillness. I strained my ears, heart thundering with the weight of unanswered dread. "Are you here?" Silence greeted my plea, wrapping around me like a shroud. I pushed myself upright, nausea creeping in as the memories flooded back. The brother's scream cut through the haze, a haunting reminder of the price we refused to fully grasp. Desperation clawed at my chest as I wrestled with the shadows that had threatened to swallow us. Behind me came a muffled sound, a soft rustle, the kind that murmurs of life in the stillness. As I turned, dread mixed with a flicker of hope. Light spilled into the cabin from the open door, casting a golden hue into the darkness that had consumed us moments before. Evan stood there, eyes wide and frantic, his chest heaving as if he had run a great distance. Relief surged through me, along with the weight of awfulness, as I spotted the ragged edges of pain etched onto his face. "You're awake!" he exclaimed, rushing to my side. "What happened?" I asked, focusing on the warmth radiating from him, the comfort that grounded me against the memory of the scream echoing in my mind. "The entity, when it reached for us, I don't know, I thought we were done for. But then everything just shattered," he panted, the words tumbling out in a breathless rush. "We're alive. I think we're safe, but they're gone." "Gone?" The tremor in my voice was an unbidden betrayal, rearing up as my gut twisted. "Gone where?" "The brother, they disappeared, and we woke up here. Alone." Evan's voice broke on the last word, and I could see the worry coiling around us like a dark serpent, threatening to constrict our fragile relief. What did that mean? Relief, yes, but it was tainted with unanswered questions. The weight of the choice hung in the air, dense and suffocating. Did we abandon him? Had I sentenced him to his fate in pursuit of saving myself and Evan? We should have stayed. Evan cut through my spiral of regret. We can't think like that. We've got to focus on finding him, maybe he's south somewhere close. A hint of determination flickered in his eyes, a lit candle against the dread. Nodding, I pushed against the cool wooden floor, scrambling to my feet. As we stepped toward the open door, where light danced with the trees outside, I could feel it, the ache of uncertainty gnawing at my core. Blood and betrayal, the shadows had whispered, yet here, in the waking world, we were alive. The breeze welcomed us, brushing against my cheeks like a ghostly promise. We moved cautiously, creeping beyond the threshold into the overgrown grass. The sun, a glowing orb, hung in the sky, illuminating the world around us but casting an even darker shadow over my heart. How could it be so bright when everything felt so impossibly heavy? Do you think he'll be all right? Evan asked, the question lingering between us with the weight of a prayer. Challenge danced in his eyes as if gathering hope could make our darkest fears tremble and retreat. I don't know, I confessed, swallowing the bitterness of uncertainty. If he were here with us, the brother, would he want to go back and face the darkness with us, or would he choose solitude born from betrayal? Let us find him, Evan said with fierce resolve as he scanned the horizon. The wood stretched endlessly, a silken weave of branches and leaves, beckoning us to delve deeper into the wild, challenging our frail hearts. As we ventured forth, hope wrestled with dread, our breaths measuring the passage of time. Each step felt like both an exploration and a retreat from the spiral of choices we couldn't unmake. The embers of our determination flickered tenuously against the weight of the unknown lurking in those trees, but the forest hid more than just the path we sought. It concealed whispers, two strange sounds carried on the wind, carrying voices that felt disjointed, fragmenting into emotions I couldn't quite grasp. Flickers of light teased from the corners of my vision, shapes darting away before I could focus. Something was off. We're not alone, I murmured, too softly for Evan to hear, but the words danced their way into my head. What? He asked suddenly, his instincts aflame. Did you hear something? Maybe, I stuttered, scanning the dense brush surrounding us. The world felt alive with anticipation, shadows accumulating to form shapes that seemed to coalesce around our fear. A prickling chill crept down my spine as the forest seemed to close around us, an unnatural tension swept through the air, thickening with foreboding. Then, from a thicket to our left, a shadow unfurled, a figure stepping into the dappled light of the path. My heart dropped as I recognized the familiar silhouette. No, I gasped, eyes widening in horror. The once captive brother, now cloaked in darkness, stood before us. His eyes glimmered not with gratitude but with unsettling fervor. You chose wrong, he intoned, voice heavy with a resonance that struck terror into my heart. What have you become? I choked out, grappling for the remnants of hope that seemed impossibly distant. He took a step toward us, and when the real horror crept into the air there, entwined in emerged shadows and ethereal presence, a glint shone unmistakably in his grip. A heart, crimson and beating, glimmered in the sunlight, a dark promise etched in flesh. Evan took a step back, his face pale with disbelief, but I found myself paralyzed by the unsettling truth congealing in my gut. The price had been paid, yet the battle was only just beginning. Fate is relentless, the brother declared, a sinister smile twisting upon his features as darkness welled like ink within his form. And now, you must pay yours. With one last look into those once familiar eyes, I understood that the darkness we faced was not just an external enemy. It was entwined with our own choices, our own tangled hearts. As the forest closed in, shadows reshaping around us like a trap, fear gripped me anew, threatening to consume us both. With the weight of betrayal curling around my soul, I held on to one thought: this fight wasn't over yet, and the true journey had just begun. The weight of my heart knew the cost of sacrifice. But now, the question loomed, whose heart would remain to carry the burden? The trees loomed heavily around us, bending under the weight of the darkening sky, yet within that canopy of shadows, a deep longing surged inside me, a desperate yearning for redemption, for understanding. Confronted by the brother spirit before us, I felt the pulse of fear wrestle with an effervescent flicker of hope that refused to be extinguished. "Please," I found my voice breaking through the thick tension. "We didn't know. We thought we were saving you." The sweetened pain of truth clawed at my throat, and I could sense Evan's disbelief morph into acceptance, surrendering to the impossible situation we now stood in. "That's the beauty of choices," the brother replied, his voice dripping with an eerie calmness. "You thought you could control what you couldn't see. What do you want from us?" Evan challenged, his voice standing firm against the encroaching darkness, refusing to let despair claim him. Hope flickered between us, threading its way through the trembling air. The brother's gaze pierced through me, and I could feel the weight of his pain, of every gut-wrenching choice we had made, and the price that we were still meant to pay. "You think you're heroes, but in this world, heroes are forged through devastation. When the moon waxes, it extracts blood for balance." Understanding coursed through me as memories of the night flooded back, the sacrifices I had witnessed, the scream echoing through the silence, the shadows that had whispered their dark promises. It was never about saving a life, it was about understanding what we were willing to sacrifice for the flickering embers of hope we clung to. "I refuse to live in regret," I said, feeling my own heart tighten around its truths. "I choose to confront the darkness, to face the very things I fear in order to emerge." Evan stepped forward beside me, our hands brushing against each other, a silent agreement that we would face this reckoning together. "We're not afraid of you. We refuse to let you be the monster in our story." The brother's mouth curled into a twisted smile, revealing darkness rather than despair, and in that brief moment, I caught a glimpse of the boy he once was, the one lost to pain, confusion, and the ferocity of this wilderness. "Then remember this truth," he proclaimed, voice resonating through the trees as if bestowing a curse. "You cannot hope to conquer without first knowing what you sacrifice. Make peace with it. You'll need it." And in one sweeping movement, he turned away from us, merging into the darkness beyond the trees as though consumed by them, denouncing the attachments we fought for. Despite the heart-thumping distance between us, I felt the grasp of his essence lingering in the air, caught in the threads of our hurried breaths. With every echoing footstep behind us, the weight of our choices hung heavy, yet it was bound, a thread designed to secure the emotional connection to our past, grounding us into the present. That we turned toward the flickering lantern light, and I grasped Evan's hand tightly as we stepped past the threshold, as if bracing ourselves against the echoes of those choices still carving jagged paths through our lives. I turned back to the woods, where shadows danced just out of sight, and I wondered, would this darkness forever follow us, a ghost clinging to our hearts, reluctant to let go of the shadows we carried? As we emerged into the light of dawn, I felt a soothing warmth replace the chill of the night. The culmination of choices, heartaches, and burdens washed over me like a cleansing tide, wrapping me in acceptance and understanding. Here, we were no longer just two lost souls, we were survivors, sculpted by our experiences, bound by the very things we feared we might lose. "Do you think they'll ever find peace?" Evan asked softly, his thumb brushing gently against mine as we forged a new path before us. I whispered, the words heavy yet imbued with a flicker of light, "that peace is something we'll need to carry with us always. The act of facing our darkness is what grants us strength." As the horizon stretched before us, illuminating the path ahead, I knew we had begun to piece ourselves back together, joining our fractured pieces to forge a new whole. Together, we carried the remnants of what once was, but also the hope of what could still be. "Whatever happens next," I said, with conviction spilling from my heart into the dawn, "we do it together." And as we walked into the growing light, I could feel it deep within me, the quiet strength of acceptance and understanding blossoming anew, melding our pasts into a future woven not from fear or regret, but an unbreakable bond forged through faith in one another. In the symphony of a brand new dawn, hope swelled brightly within my chest, a flame burning against the darkness, illuminating the truth. The shadows may linger, but we would remain unyielding. It was not the end, it was merely the beginning. and that thought settled within me like the gentle embrace of dawn breaking over the horizon. Because sometimes, true freedom lies not in the absence of shadows but in the strength to embrace both light and dark, knowing that love can tether us through it all, and thus, as I took Evan's hand, the final realization dawned upon me: sometimes the monsters we confront are not the ones stalking us in the dark but the ones that remain hidden in the corners of our hearts, waiting to be understood and finally set free.